Hey everyone, welcome to this live webinar. I'm really excited to be with you guys today to go in depth with Cadworx. This is one of my favorite platforms to build artwork for, especially because I'm not as advanced when it comes to the artwork and when it comes to some other platforms such as Adobe or CorelDRAW. So Cadworx from the beginning was an easy way for me to get started with designing because there's so many attributes to the program, such as clip art and templates that allows me to see what different things that are capable in Cadworx. So that is where I started, and today we're going to be going into the platform discussing how you can also get started with Cadworx if you aren't already, and also some different things that you can do to create your own templates. So one thing that we have started, and I'm going to share my screen with you, is adding new templates. So you'll notice in Cadworx now under 2020 new, we started adding new and updated templates that are just more popular and trendier when it comes to reaching different markets. So you can see a variety of different things here that we're doing to be able to update the platform overall. In addition to that, we're also updating our fonts as well. So you'll start to see some fonts that you can access through STAHLS and through the Cad Cut Templates program there, also being integrated here as well. So we're constantly now going to be adding clip art and templates and new fonts and designs for you guys to utilize and create an overall great design for your customers' t-shirts, or maybe just some crafting projects that you're doing at home for yourself, or maybe some family and friends. And we're really going to be honing in on that today. I'm working with the Cricut Explore Air 2. So that is the craft cutter of choice today. However, the same process that I walk you through today for Cadworx is going to be the same because what we're doing is creating designs in Cadworx and ultimately exporting the designs to be able to bring it up into our craft cutter design spaces. So for example, Cricut has a dedicated design space, and because they want you to be able to create from scratch in there using their clip art that you have to purchase and things like that. So right now we do not have a connection to export ultimately directly to those craft cutters like we are able to with a Roland or Graphtec type of design software because we have a middleman that allows that to do that, known as Vector Cut. So I'm sure you guys learned all about that in the webinar last week with Allison Zaccaro, where she went a lot in depth with Cadworx and the abilities you have. So today we're going to be walking through the entire process from design creation. You can see the design that we're going to create today from scratch, so you know where I source things, and do some unique things like the distressed effect that you're seeing in there as well. So keep in mind, Cadworx is a free online designer. So all you have to do is go online. It's not something that you have to download onto your computer and dedicate one computer to it. You can access the design space across multiple computers, right? So this is the design we're creating with Cinco de Mayo being right around the corner. I wanted to do a fun graphic that would be super easy to create utilizing what Cadworx has to offer here. I'll also show you where I source the distressed effect that we utilize throughout this, and some clip art that I also imported as well. So starting with clip art, I'm going to select Add Clip Art on the left-hand side here, and you'll see a variety of things come up. 29 pages on my screen listed here, and a variety of different market types, or just broken down so that you can choose based off of the specific thing that you may be decorating or targeting for in Cadworx. All right, so for this, the first thing we're going to do is import a circle. All right, so I'm just going to type in circle. There's a little search bar that makes it really easy for me as well. And I'm going to double click the circle that I want to import. All right, so this is the one. And the next thing I'm going to do is import a line. All right, so what I'm doing is recreating this half circle up here, and we're going to punch through lines to be able to create the effect that we did as the background for our little margarita glass there. So just by repeating that same process, going to Clipart, I'm going to type in line now. And I'm going to use this horizontal option here because there's multiples, and I can just rotate these to be across instead of vertical. All right, so, or not vertical, but diagonal. All right, so I'm going to change the colors of these so I can see that they are dropping directly on top of my circle here. I'm going to make these a bit bigger and rotate until I'm happy with where it lays. And now I'm just going to drag this across, making these a little bit wider so that I can go ahead and just punch the rest of these through. So I'm going to go up to the top, wherever I'm happy with starting with those, and drag these down a bit. And now to punch these through, all I have to do is select both of those by either dragging my scroll across there, or I can hit Control and select both at a time if I choose to do it that way as well. Right, so all I have to go to is shaping and select back minus front. Right, so it went ahead and punched those lines through. I don't need these lines anymore, so I'm just going to hit the delete key on my keyboard and get rid of those. Now what I need to do is break this apart so that I can get rid of the bottom half of the circle. So because this was originally a solid image and I punched it through, what I need to do is actually break apart by curves as opposed to break apart by regions. The reason I need to do that is because this was one solid piece of clip art, not multiple pieces of clip art that were grouped together. So breaking apart by curves is actually going to take each piece and break that apart now. So all I have to do is hit delete on that bottom half. And now I'm going to combine these or group these together by selecting condense. Right, and I'm just going to give them a color now. Right, so you can see there's little black lines on each of these. So what I want to do is get rid of that black line, not necessarily because this will show up in my cut line, but because I want this to be as true to what it's going to look like whenever I am vinyl cutting this and building my mock-up, right? The next part is getting our little margarita glass in here. So I can go to Clipart and type in margarita, and it'll give me two options here. Now, if this isn't the margarita glass that I want to use, either of these, I can actually import and vectorize my own clip art to put in here, making sure that if it's not free, I'm purchasing it, or if it's a free download, I can utilize it for that use. All right, so the margarita glass that I sourced here, because I wanted that little line there, and I just didn't want as much detail in it as the other two offered, because I'm going to be adding a lot of detail with that distressing effect that's in there. So I wanted to just have a more solid overall piece of clip art that wasn't going to get too intricate when it comes to the weeding process if it already has a lot of detail in it. So I sourced a margarita glass from Cpsia. And all I did was go to this, I signed up, it's free clip art that you can get. And all I did was type in cocktail or margarita, and a variety of options come up. So you can choose from here. You can also filter on this website by going to vector graphics, and all of the vector art will populate on the screen for you. Right, so that is where I sourced this particular piece of clip art. And all I have to do to import and vectorize that after I download is go to File and Import and Vectorize. So it's already listed here But of course, I would go to the download section of my computer and import it that way as well. So I'm just going to double click this since it's already there and walk you through the process. So this I downloaded as a PNG file. The reason I did that is because if I were to download as an SVG, I don't have the software on my computer that's actually going to save it as an SVG file that I can actually import and read. So I always export and import as a PNG. That way the background is already gone for me, and that's one less step that I have to do. Now we're going to go to the foreground colors. At this point, what we're telling Cadworx to do is create cut lines for the colors that I'm selecting in this design, because we're taking a raster image and we need to add a cut line to it, and it'll do it for you automatically. So if you're ever importing designs, make sure that you are, if it's a raster image, that it's a very large file and there's not a ton of color in it. If this had upwards of like 5 or 6 colors, I would be a little bit worried about it not being able to read each color and create a cut line for each one. So any raster images that have solid pieces like this that you can find very easily, this one would be a great option. This is a great option. Like large files that have minimal color to them are ideal. This one I would not be able to import because there's just too many variances of colors and detail in it that it would just never be able to pick that up. It'll probably be able to pick up the edges of it, but the insides would be really hard to read, and that would create a mess of a cut file for me to try to cut and weed. Right, so this is a great option. All I have to do now at this point is select OK. There are some options over here that say region, resolution, and fit to curve. What these allow you to do is just kind of, if it's a smaller file and you need to build the resolution of the cut line that it's creating, or piece items together that are split apart, you can adjust the fit to curve to kind of bridge that gap. But this really just helps clean up the cut line more than anything. All right, so I'm okay with how it vectorized, so I'm just going to select OK. Now I'm going to size this down. So this is going to be going center of the clip art we just created. I'm going to make it a little bit bigger. And now I'm just going to select both and go to align and center. All right, so that's going to center that for me. And because I want the stem to be more center than the middle of where the top of the glass is and the line, I'm just going to move that over ever so slightly. And now I can start adding my text. All right, so all I have to do is go to add text. And the text that I'm using today is from our 2020 new, which are the fonts we are starting to import for you guys. And the text that I used for a couple lines was pharmacy. I wanted to just keep it really fun. So this is a nice bubbly font. So you can see there it has a mixture of cap and lowercase text there, which is really cute. So the saying here is, if you're going to be, is the first line. Right, so just doing that all in lowercase. I'm going to select OK. And now I have the ability to size this down to be either the width of this, depending on how I really want the graphic to look. This one is a little bit larger than the size of the circle there. So what I'm going to do is check the width of this, which is set at 12.5. And I'm going to size this down to about 14. Great, so I have the ability to go up here and put that in, or I can drag and move it this way as well. Right, and I'm going to make this text white. And then I'm going to add my salty text there as well. So I'm going to go to add text. And font that I used for this one is, trying to remember here which one I use. It's either the Magnolia or I think it was Blenda. Yeah, that's right. All right, so there is two effects, or one effect that I used on the salty text, and that was making it just a little bit italicized. And that's what I love about Cadworx, is because when you want to add an effect, it's just as simple as a couple clicks. You don't have to worry about breaking down nodes and moving them yourself to get the look that you want. So I went to add effect and I used this envelope here. All right, so you can see that this makes it a little bit more italicized, but there's a variety of different effects that you can add to your text by just clicking them, and it applies directly to what you have selected. All right, so you can see that it stretched that out for me. And I want to make sure that it's a little bit taller than that. So I'm just going to drag it down. And that's how we created the salty text, by just selecting a font and adding a nice effect there. All right. So I'm going to change that to white. And moving along, we also have our third line that says, then bring the tequila. So I'm going to duplicate that, bring it down, and now I'm going to change the text. Oh, tequila is not spelled with a G, is it? All right. Okay, so what I did to this line to size it up with the first line is checked the width and sized it down to this by unlocking it so that it doesn't change the height at all. All right, so that is set at 14.87. So I'm going to unlock the toggle aspect here by selecting that button. And I'm going to type in 14.87. Now that's just going to scrunch that down so that the height remains the same. And it is aligning with the width of the top line. So now all I need to do is select this portion and center it so I know it's aligned accurately, and make sure that it's exactly where I want it to be in this design. All right, so the next and last step in Cadworx for the design creation is adding the distressed effect. So I actually want your guys' opinion on the distressing, and if it's something that you think we should add to the templates portion of Cadworx 2020 new. If it's something that you see you guys utilizing. I actually need to change the color of this as well. All right, there we go. All right, so I have it saved in my file. So I'm going to go to open and then go to the distressed overlay. All right, so this is a Vectorize distressed image that I'm just going to drop right on top of the pieces that I want vectorized. Now, whenever I'm weeding out this particular text, it already has a decent amount of detail. So I'm not going to add the distress to that because I don't want the text to be hard to read at all. All right, so what I'm going to do is just select the items that I want to distress. So it's going to be the word salty, the margarita glass, and the background of the margarita glass. I'm going to bring it behind that. All right, and then I'm going to size this up because the larger that I make the distress across this, the easier it is going to be to weed. All right, so I'm going to select all four of those items: salty, background, margarita glass, and distress. And I'm going to go to shaping, and you know what? I almost messed up. What I need to do is group these three items together first so that the distressed template punches through all three of them at the same time. If I kept them separate, it would choose which one it wants to distress first, and then I'd have to repeat that step 2 more times. So I'm going to group these together by just condensing them. And then I'm going to select to back so that it's behind the distress template. And now we're going to do back minus front. Now there is a lot of detail that is happening here. So you'll find that whenever you're, excuse me, distressing any clip art or items of a design that you want to, it's going to take a little while to reshape that because it's creating a new vector piece. It's taking these items and punching them through, and because there's so many minute pieces of that distress, it's going to take a little bit longer. So while that is going through that, I'm going to visit some of the questions that are coming in. What was the salty font? That was the Blenda script. And we just added that into the 2020 new folder for the fonts in Cadworx. Kathleen makes a really good point. Some distressing effects won't cut or weed well. Yes, it did take me a while to pinpoint which distress template should be utilized in here, because some of it is just too detailed and it is really hard to weed. However, this distressed effect has long lines throughout that if you do it large enough, there aren't many small pieces that you have to go in and weed out. So that's why I use this one, because there's really long pieces that I can, for the most part, get with one pull. But certainly you are correct, there are a lot of, wondering why this isn't showing up real quick. There are a lot of distress effects that can cause the production process to be very hard. It may be just taking a little while to load, and that's okay, we can wait. All right, so Stephanie says she loves the distressed look and she thinks we should add it. That's great. So does Janet, she agrees. Jeff as well. So it looks like we're all on the same page for adding the distress effect to Cadworx. So I'll see about adding that. I'm sure it'll be simple to add. All right, my other text has disappeared on me, but it's there. It's just not loading for me. All right, so that's how easy it is to distress. All right, so you can see whenever we cut this out that the pieces are going to be large enough that we don't have to really worry about too many small pieces going throughout. And there is a trick that I saw on Pinterest, actually, that you can take a sticky roller that's typically used for delinting apparel and drag it across really small detail, and it'll pick some of that out. So I did test that out this morning. It did pick up some of them, but not all of them. So I'm wondering if it actually saved me any time, if it would have just been easier to just weed it out. But some people do use that trick. All right, so I'm going to make sure everything is centered here by just going to Align Center. All right, my text has reappeared there, which is great. So I'm going to adjust where that is for a moment. All right, so that was the last step when it comes to the design process. I can go ahead and delete this one now. So now it comes to how do we export this design and bring it up into Cricut Design Space. So what I need to do is break apart by colors right now. And this is really easy because we're just using one color and or two different colors, sorry. So all I have to do is go to break apart by colors, and it's gonna ungroup the items that we had there. And now I'm gonna move this off to the side, right? And this is just gonna be layered on there, so we don't have to worry about punching that through at all. There are some heat transfer vinyls out there that allow you to, or don't allow you to layer. So if you were to be doing this in Glitter Flake, I would say punch this item through so that this is laying on the apparel and not directly on top of another product. We're going to be using two matte products today, Sport Film Light and Fashion Film Electric. And I'll tell you why I use Sport Film Light whenever we get to that process. All right, so we have everything broken apart as we would want it to be in Cricut. That will make the Cricut design software process a lot simpler. So what I'm going to do now is go to File, Export, and name it. So I already named this one Cinco de Mayo, and I'm going to export as a PNG. So same way Same file type that I like importing into Cadworx is the same thing I like importing into Cricut Design Space, because it's just going to make it easier for those designers to read the raster art and clean it up and vectorize it. So PNG is great. It exports it as a very large file. So I'm going to select OK, and that's going to go into my downloads. All right. So in Cricut Design Space, I'm going to select Upload Image and pull that from my downloads right here. So it's going to ask me what type of image that I'm using here. So it says, you know, if there's a lot of detail, blended colors and things like that. I'm not so much worried about the colors because I'm not trying to print and cut. I'm just going to cut this out of heat transfer vinyl. However, I am going to select complex because I want to make sure that they're picking up all of those fine details that are kind of woven throughout the design because of that distressed effect. So we'll select continue. I'm going to zoom out, making sure that they got all the pieces. Looks like it's good. So I'll hit continue, and it's going to take it and create my vectorized piece here. So I'm going to select this one. I don't need this one because we're not printing. We just need the cut file. So I'm going to hit save, and we're going to insert that into the canvas. All right, I'm going to zoom out here so I can get a good view. First thing I need to do is break these two items apart so that they're not cutting out of the same material. So all I do here is just splice or slice this by putting a shape over top of the item I want to be separate from the main part of the design, and hit slice. Now I can just delete the extras that are there. This is going to be my fashion film electric green, and this is going to be my white sport film. All right, so everything is good to go here. I just want to make sure I have my sizing right. So I'm going to drop this right in there. And we are at 18 inches in width, which is way too big, especially since we're cutting on a 12 inch width cutting mat. So we're going to size this down to, or it's 18 height, 15 width. So let's size this down to 10. All right, so as long as that's good to go and it's how you want it to be for your design, now we just are going through the make it process. So we'll select make it, and we want to make sure that we have our mirrored design here, making sure each of these are mirrored. All right, and this wants me to, even though it's right at the 12 inches, we are going to go back and size this down because I do not have a 12 by 24 cutting mat. All right, so I'm going to hit cancel real quick and size this down just a tad more. I believe they don't accept it unless it is less than 11 and a half. All right, so we're at 11.2, so we should be good now. There we go. All right, so same process, we'll just repeat that, making sure we turn the mirror on. Anytime you're working with heat transfer vinyl, you want to be sure to mirror. All right, and we'll hit continue. And now we can start setting up our cutting mat. So the simplest way is to just grab your cutting mat, which I already have loaded into the cutter here. And I'm going to place this down and grab my material to make sure that we have the right sizing here. So I already have my sport film light and fashion film electric pre-cut. I'm just going to place this down, making sure I'm not getting too many air bubbles in there. All right, so I did do the full 12 by 12 because I wasn't sure how big we were going to go with this design. There's only going to be a little bit more excess over here since we're doing like 10 inches in width or 9 inches in width and nearly a little over 11 inches in height. So 12 by 12 sheet would work perfect for this. And then I already have this pre-cut as well. All right. So because this is very detailed, there is going to be a lot of cut time. All right. So the Cricut, even though there is a fast mode in comparison to some vinyl cutters out there, it does still cut very slow. So we'll just chat and I'll answer some of your questions that are coming in. I do need to hook up my computer to the Cricut real quick. And I'm going to walk you through what I'm doing on the screen here now. So let's share that real quick. All right, so make sure, and what I love about Cricut is they always make sure you're triple checking, making sure the mirror is turned on because they know you have iron on selected on the dial. The fine point blade is just fine. Cricut Design Space or Cricut provides you with 2 blade types. Fine point blade is going to be great for the iron-on product that we are using today. I'm going to turn the fast mode on. Make sure I have the white design selected and not the green because I have the white material loaded in. And I just say double check that because there have been times where I've had a different color selected and accidentally cut out the wrong color. So make sure you have the right one selected. It'll change the background to a different color so you know you have it selected. Mirror is on. All right, I turned my fast mode on and now all I have to do is click the Cricut button. Right, so that is right on the vinyl cutter and that is going to send my design and it's going to start cutting it out. Another thing that Cricut Design Space does is tells you your progress in the cutting process as well, which I like because if you know it's going to take a while to cut the design and I can see the progress right on the screen of where it's at, then that helps me kind of gauge some other things that I can be doing while this is in that process, right? So while that's cutting, let's visit some questions. All right, so we have, is there a PDF showing all of the fonts available? I don't believe we have a PDF of all of the fonts, but that is a great idea. We should actually put something like that together. So I'll see if that's something that we can share out. All right, Jeff asks, I love the design. Can we use it? I'd be really happy to share this clip art or design template with you guys if you'd like. So be sure to comment if you're interested in that, and we'll be sure to get that sent over to you. Or actually, you know what would probably be easiest? I'm going to type my email in here, and you email me if you want this template. Mary asked, do you always cut your vinyl using iron-on? It depends on the vinyl. So if I'm doing iron-on vinyl, which is heat activated, so I know it has a carrier and an adhesive on there, and it's always like 88 microns thick or less, which is just telling me like the thickness of the product here, I use iron-on. If it is a thicker heat transfer vinyl, I will use the iron-on plus setting, and depending on the product, I'll also adjust the settings in the back end of the canvas portion of Cricut Design Space. So for example, if you are using a glitter flake product that is a pretty thick material, it'll work perfect on the iron-on plus setting, depending on the newness of your blade. Now, if you're working with a product even thicker than glitter flakes, such as flock, we have a Cad Cut Flock 2 product that is fairly thick. I always make sure that I adjust the depth of my blade by increasing the force an additional 10 numbers. All right, so whatever it's typically set at for your glitter or your iron-on plus setting, I'll add an additional 10. All right, so if you guys want the design, I see some of you guys commenting in that would love it. Please definitely send me an email that I commented in so I know who exactly wants it, and I'll just send the file right over. All right. Jeff asked, can this be cut on the Roland GS24? Absolutely. So anything that we are cutting out today can be done on a larger cutter. Actually a lot simpler because those cutters actually run on a faster motor. These run on a stepper motor, which is a little bit slower, and Roland and Graphtec have servo motors, which allows the blade to go very fast. So the design would actually probably be done cutting by now if we were using one of those. But yeah, if you guys have other cutters that aren't desktop cutters, such as Cricut, Silhouette, Brother Scan and Cut, then this is still going to be just as compatible, if not better, and less of a process for you. Yeah, thanks for answering there for me, Deborah. Pixabay.com, that is exactly where I am pulling the free commercial use clip art. So keep that in mind. There are some clip art websites out there and also free font websites out there that are just for personal use and not for selling. If it's for commercial use, you can utilize that clip art in your designs to sell your products. So make sure that you are always checking the licensing and all of that fun stuff. Janet says, I love distress look and have many customers who do too. Yeah, distressing is really popular. I think it makes heat transfer vinyl feel great on the shirt because although we have heat transfer vinyl that is fairly thin and is still really nice feeling on the shirt, the distressing just creates more, I see all your guys' emails coming in. But yeah, so distressing just creates more void areas and allows the to be able to breathe more. So I love the distress, whether it's for screen print, DTG, heat transfer vinyl. It just creates more of a breathable design on a shirt, especially if you're doing the full front of a shirt that has a lot of product on there. All right. All right, so this is about 76% done. So we still have some time to kill. Let's hop back over to Cadworx and just talk about some of the other things that you can utilize in here. So of course, with all the clip art and templates that we have, there are a lot of different things that you can do in it to create more stuff. So let's say, for example, we want to use this clip art here, right? So it has 3 colors in it, and it also has an overlay. So everything in here is completely customizable. So if I wanted to not have the third contour, for example, I can remove every little thing that was created in this design to make it fit how I want it to a little better, right? So even if I wanted to fill with a pattern instead as well, which is really fun. So I have the ability to come in here and select a pattern if I'd like, and it will fill that with the pattern. And how I get our Cad Cut pattern images is just by going to the website, finding the pattern that I want, and taking a screen capture of it and then filling it in here. I specifically use the snipping tool because it lets me select what portion of the screen I want to capture so that I can fill this in. All right, so if I want to keep my contour there, I can. I'm going to change this one. It's a black. So there's just so many different things that you can do in here to create really cool graphics for your customers. All right, if I wanted to change this to be here, obviously we're way past 2016, so we need to change that too. So every effect that is added on here makes the update as you're changing the text too. So keep in mind, you don't have to do it step by step all the time. If you are adding effects and you need to make changes to a word or something that you have created on the screen, you can easily just go back in. You don't have to start over. Right, I have the ability to change the background color. So if I was going to be putting this on a gray shirt, you can add that. And let's say we just want to change out that completely. I can utilize the fonts that we have available to you, and then you also have the ability to import your own fonts. So here's a variety of fonts that I have imported. So if I want to use Albrit as this one, I can drop that here, change the color. So there's just so many fun things. And what's nice about it is you don't have to worry about a trial period or a time to really learn the program because it's free. You just come on, create a username and password, and then you have access to all of this. All right, so let's go ahead and remove this from the cutting mat, and we can start weeding this as our Fashion Film Electric cuts out. So I really like Fashion Film Electric because it has metallic-like colors, but it doesn't have the bright mirror shine, which is really great for if you want to add special effect to different markets that don't love glitter or metallic. This is a really great product that just has a nice sheen to it that adds an effect to your design without going overboard or it just being too much for a particular client. All right, so this pretty much takes up the width of my thing here, or my heat transfer vinyl. There it is. So I don't have to worry about trimming. If it was smaller, I would probably trim that out and save it as scraps. Right, so the reason I chose Sport Film Light is because it is super easy to weed. Right, so it has a little bit of a tacky carrier so that it does hold a decent amount of detail, but look how easy this peels away. Right, so Sport Film Light, really great for cotton poly blends, your typical substrate types when it comes to apparel. And this is what I mean by weed out. All right, so whenever you're working with heat transfer vinyl, you have to weed away the excess material so that your design shows through. Right, so we call this process weeding. So that's what I mean when I say weed out. All right, and this process can be very time consuming depending on the amount of detail that you have in your design as well. And also depending on the product that you use. So if I was using a high stretch product that would be wanting to kind of tear on me, then this would be a lot harder to do. So Sport Film Light, a really great product, holds good detail, and it's just super easy to weed away the excess material. So if you are going to do distressed effects, being able to select a product that is super easy to weed is going to be a time saver for you and just less of a headache overall. Right, so now I need to weed out all of those cavities to make sure we are getting the best overall quality of the design. There are some fonts that are really popular now that keep the cavities in, which is pretty cool if you're looking for a unique effect in your design elements. All right, so while I'm weeding this, we actually have some poll questions that I forgot to launch for you earlier. So I'm going to ask one of our team members who's on with us to launch that for us now. This just kind of helps me gauge the audience a little bit and get to know you guys a little bit better in some of the stuff that you're utilizing. So we have 3 questions that we're going to launch for you to answer. I'm also curious to see how many of you are using Silhouette versus Cricut. If you guys are using Silhouette over Cricut or vice versa, Cricut over Silhouette, I want you guys to comment in and tell me what you like about those cutters more so than the other. Why is that what you chose to go with? From my experience with Silhouette, honestly, they're both really great quality cutters. So I'm curious what your guys' thoughts are. Weeding these little pieces out, that's why I love this weeder, because it has a really sharp point to it. So it just goes in there and picks them right up. It helps too whenever you are weeding detailed designs like this, if you have really good lighting, because it really helps you see those cut lines and where everything's at. The lighting that I have on right now is a studio light that's good for shooting video. I'm not saying go and purchase a light for that just for weeding, but even a ring light, if you could turn it on to its brightest setting and just kind of hover it over your design, I've noticed that helps well. Some people put these over top of a backlight that artists use for tracing. All right, so it looks like we have all of the distress out. So that's what I mean. Whenever you're doing the design creation of this, it's important to make sure that it's big enough so that it is punching through some distressing, but not so tiny that it's hard to actually get in there and weed out all of those pieces. All right, so let's go ahead and check out the polls here. I don't know what happened. They all the percentages went away. Oh, I'll revisit those after, I guess. Okay. All right, so that's all weeded out. I'm just going to hold that up to the light and bend it a little bit to see if I missed any pieces. And I did miss 2 pieces in the salty text. All right, awesome. So we got that all weeded out. And now let's weed out our margarita glass. Didn't look like it cut though. Let's find out why. Did I never send it? Let's try again. Luckily, that's a small piece and it doesn't take long to cut, so we'll see what happens. Okay. User error. All right, so while that's cutting, let's go ahead and weed out this design. If it doesn't cut again, we're gonna have to go without the margarita glass until I can figure out why. I have a little small one cut, but it's way too small for this design. I just wanted to test it out and see. Okay. All right, so for the heat pressing process, and I'm going to move my chair so that you guys can see the heat press better and adjust my screen here. All right, there we go. All right, so for my heat pressing process, I am using a district t-shirt in yellow. I think that bright colors for Cinco de Mayo will be popular for the holiday. And this is just a 100% recycled fabric. This is called the District Re-Tee. So it's really popular because recycling, going green, all of that fun stuff is something that customers like to know that they're helping out with whenever they're making their purchases. So use this to your benefit, especially if you're in a demographic where that speaks well to your customer base. So I'm doing a preheat here to release my moisture and wrinkles, and I'm going to adjust my time down to 10 seconds. And my temperature is going to be at, I'm sorry, not 10 seconds, 15 seconds. And my temperature is going to be at 320. So anytime you're working with two different media types, you want to make sure you're going with the highest temperature of the product that you're going to be applying that has the highest temperature for its application instructions. So our fashion film cut out this time. So let's go ahead and weed that really quick. All right, I am going to trim apart this one because it's much smaller and I did not include a weed border for that. Now, fashion film, it's a pretty easy to weed product too, so don't get me wrong. Fashion film can definitely hold a ton of detail because it has a really tacky carrier. But Sport Foam Light, when you're doing really large designs like that, it just weeds away so much easier because it's not as tacky of a carrier. But fashion film also has a ton of colors in comparison to Sport Foam Light. So fashion film, definitely want to use if you need a broader range of colors as well. Come on, there we go. And one more. Okay, so whenever we are heat applying this, we always start with the largest part of the design, of course, and then we're going to layer this piece afterwards. So that turned out really great, super easy. Didn't have to spend too much time in the weeding process, which is really nice if you are going to add multiple colors to a design, because you don't want to have to worry about both pieces for every color that you're going to be heat applying being a ton of work for that weeding process or any process in your production. Now, because this is such a large design, this is going to be a couple steps at the heat press. The heat press that I'm utilizing today is the 9x12 pink craft press. And because this fell on the floor, it picked up some fuzz. I want to make sure that that is out from under my adhesive, or else it's going to be stuck in there forever. All right, so I'm going to make sure that I have this placed where I want it. I already preheated my garment, so I don't have to worry about hitting that again. All right, so we're going to hit the first layer. Now, because my cover sheet, or not my cover sheet, but this Mylar carrier that the heat transfer vinyl is laminated to is covering all of the heat transfer vinyl, essentially, I don't really have to worry about a cover sheet right now. Now, whenever I go to lay in my next color, that's whenever I want to use a cover sheet because I will have exposed vinyl. Right now, I'm just going to apply the last part of my first design, and then we will place our margarita glass. And I'm going to grab my cover sheet here for the second design. So another thing I love about the pink craft press is that it fits so nicely on this little dresser that I had. Probably should have increased my pressure for this application, and I'll show you why here in a second. So it's not really applying very well. It's actually picking up at the edges. So I'll show you that real quick. I want to show you this because it's an easy fix. So right on this S is a good example where it's kind of picking up at the edges. That's okay because I can just lay this right back on the heat press and increase my pressure so that I get the adhesion I'm looking for. Right, so peeling that away very slowly to make sure no small pieces are picking up. And I'll just press that again once I cover with my cover sheet. and all those pieces that are lifting up will stick right back down. So with heat transfer vinyl, that's what's so nice about it, is that it's an easy fix. And you know, if you are getting the right application on there, it's going to be a nice durable product. So just because something like that happens, don't be worried, because it's really easy to fix by just placing it right back on the heat press and applying again. So for this one, I'm going to apply for just a couple seconds. The reason that I'm doing that is because I want to make sure that that Mylar carrier that's on there isn't going to make lines in my design. The other reason this is super easy is because fashion film is a tacking product, which means I can just tack it on my apparel for just a few seconds to activate the adhesive, and then cure it by putting it under the heat for its full application. So a full 15 seconds will cure the fashion film on there. And then I'm just going to re-tack the bottom to make sure that that got a good adhesion for me. So both of these products are Cpsia compliant, which means it's safe to the skin, for children, anything that could potentially cause any harm. Is not something that you really need to worry with these two products. They both last 50 washes, so they're tested in the wash cycle for a full 50 wash cycle, and they last, right? So it's really quality product, and that's one thing people get a little bit concerned with whenever they're working with heat transfer vinyl, is the quality and the feel. But both of these products are really great, and because they're so thin, it doesn't make it feel super heavy on the garment, even if you layer, right? So I think it came out great. All right, so I'm gonna bring my chair back over and visit some of the comments that you guys have. All right, so Marcus says, sometimes layering colors, I have issue of the carrier edges pressing into the bottom of the vinyl. Is there a way to avoid this? Yes, so that's the exact reason that I tacked the green layer for just a few seconds, because that Mylar carrier will actually dig into the white heat transfer vinyl and create a big square. So if that happens, that's how easy it is to avoid it. Just tack the top layer product for 2 to 3 seconds, as long as it's a tackable material. So fashion film works great for tacking. So does our Premium Plus. Glitter flake patterns. There's a variety that work with the tacking method. So then you'll peel that carrier away, put it back on the heat press with a cover sheet, and then apply for the full application. So you can see that there are no marks from that carrier on there because I used those steps. Right. What film is the margarita? That is fashion film electric, and that is in our emerald green. It may be called a different color, but it's the darker green out of the two fashion film electrics that we offer. All right. Chef says fuzz is extra. 50 cents on the cost of the shirt. That's hilarious. Sylvia says, to me, the Cricut is easy to use. I agree. I would say if you're getting started with equipment like this, these type of cutters, if you want to enter the industry with a low cost, then yeah, great option for these, and super user friendly, easy to understand in my opinion. So I agree with that. The Cricut is really easy to use. Marcus says we use Corel. I prefer Cadworx for my personal jobs. Awesome, awesome. Jan, I love my STAHLS weeder. It's a lifesaver, especially for those tiny little pieces and intricate designs. All right, Deborah, does STAHLS offer any samples or bundles of different heat transfer vinyls just to start trying out different types? Yes. So you can actually find that in the samples section of our website. So just stahls.com, go to the site, and just go to the search bar and type in samples, and it will take you to a page, and you can choose which type of sample bundle that you want. So there's ones for special effect heat transfer vinyl, basic heat transfer vinyl finishes. Some are free, some are $5, but $5 for a bunch of different heat transfer vinyls is pretty good in my opinion. All right. So it looks like we have most of the questions answered here. So I want to thank you guys so much for joining today. This was a really fun project, so I'll be sure to get this design template sent over to you. But thanks again so much for joining, and we will be back with you guys again soon. So if you guys want to see some of the other live events we have coming up and free webinars, be sure to visit the STAHLS events page, where we will be just listing those out for you to be able to join. So, all right, thank you guys. Have a good one.